People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.
October Red is sponsored by SA Security. Maximum security, minimum fuss.
Hello, good evening to all of you. I'm Abs of October Red, and this is a post-presser live. Thought I'd catch up with you guys. I feel like I haven't done a live in a while. Obviously, I'm not in London because I am at home. I was there this week for the grand arrivals, and yeah, it's just a long week, isn't it? You've got the grand arrivals, then you've got the public workout, then you've got the press conference, then you've got the weigh-in, and then you've got the fight. So I just decided, listen, I'm just going to go to the grand arrivals and I'm going to do a live watch along for fight night. I think we had a good time last time, so I'm going to repeat it this time. I think the best view sometimes is watching from home. I hope you guys have all been well. I am aware that I probably chose a dodgy time to do this. Hands up, I don't watch football, so if the football's on, it's one of them. Sorry, I don't watch football, so I wouldn't have known. But you're going to get me waffling for a little bit. We have just had the press conference. Interesting press conference. I would have rather they did the main event first and then worked their way backwards. But we had the undercard. Interesting two fights on the undercard was the heavyweight bout that we've got between Tommy Welsh and Richard Riakporhe. Tommy drew out Richard, which was good to see. He didn't sit there and play Mr. Nice Guy. Tommy was like, yep, just wound him up, went straight for the neck. And that's what we like, because Richard was going to be, he was going to be this amicable guy. Yeah, I don't really respect you. I'll do the talking in the ring, all of this, etc., etc. But then Tommy found the words to pull Richard out of his shell. And he did. He mouthed off, and it was good. A little bit of excitement there. Obviously, we had Scobie and Adam Azim as well. So that was interesting. Scobie, I believe, last minute opponent, etc., etc. He's been mouthing off all week. And to be fair to Scobie, you know, maybe he's an unknown entity in the UK. However, I don't think that we've been giving him enough credit. We've definitely treated him as the B-side fighter. Maybe not giving him the common courtesy I think that he deserves. Yes, he's mouthy because he's got to sell the fight, because he's happy for the opportunity, because that's his style. But I think everybody's talked him down a little bit. But as you know, muscles don't win fights, and neither does a big mouth. However, you've got the tactics that they use to try and get into the fighters' heads. But without further ado, let me go into the comments. I got a shout out Star Fox that was here early. Listen, I thought this would be done and dusted very, very quickly. However, it wasn't. So I had to keep on postponing the time. And then when I saw Chris Eubank Sr. walk onto the stage, I thought, yeah, this is going to go on a little bit longer than it should. And to be fair, it did. But it was worth it. It was still entertaining. So shout out to Star Fox. Let's have a look. He's even commented there, Lord have mercy. Eubank Sr. is reading from his 3,000-page book of poems. So I saw people in the live chat. I was in there as well. And people say, oh, Chris Eubank Sr. is there. I'll be back in half an hour. So that kind of banter, we know that he's going to be yapping for a bit. That was there. Let me put the comments slightly to the side. So, yeah, I commented as well. Back to Star Fox saying, yeah, I guess I'll see you at midnight. Chris Welsh, are you related to Tommy by any chance? Good evening to you. Wow, Senior was the final piece we needed at the press conference. Got my wish. How much, Star Fox says, how much you think they threw at Tommy for running his gums at Riakporhe? Interesting question. Now, I think Tommy's like that. I have spoken to Tommy previously. Maybe he's not potentially like what I've said about him, so I didn't get to speak to him this time round. But it is what it is, and it's a fight. And like I said to Richard when I spoke to him, you can't really underestimate anybody. Yes, I will say that You should be better than him, but we understand that underdogs can come in and upset the apple cart. But I think a lot of people have been saying that, Tommy's this really good fighter. Go and have a look at his fights and make up your own mind, and then go and have a look at Richard's fights. But like I said, boxing, it's heavyweights. There's going to be an upset on the card because that's how it goes. We'll see who it is. I can't lie, that face-off with father and son was actually beautiful to see. You know what, Chris? I didn't like it because I felt that they were taking the limelight because they have literally stepped in front of the sons. It's about the sons, and yes, the nostalgia's there with the fathers. 35 years. This is the fourth battle, generational battle. But they kind of made it about them and not about their sons, because I had sort of like got it into my head now. The fathers are excluded from this. We're now seeing a rematch with two guys that went hell for leather, really put on a good show. But it was kind of distorted because it almost turned into like the father's show. But you know what? If it adds value, if that's what they've done for the marketing, if that's what they believe is going to get, to sell the last few tickets, if they've still got tickets available, we'll see how it goes. I did like Eddie Hearn with the cues. I like that very, very much. A couple of people were saying in the comments on the live that it was cringe. No, it wasn't. Because what they did is they played music, and then Chris Eubank Jr. couldn't speak over the music. So he's like, oh, I'll wait till the music stops, because the attention was taken away from him. So I think that was, what do they say in tennis? Game, set, and match. I think I'd let Eddie win that one. I thought it was a good take with the cue cards. Alexander saying that the press conference was kind of lame. In what way? I thought it was all right. I enjoyed it. Kept me entertained. Jay Sharp. And sorry, good evening to all of you that are here as well. Apologies. Forgotten how to do a live now. Jay Sharp saying, always great seeing and hearing your coverage. Respect, young lady. Young lady. 48, not young. Eubank Senior, poetic. Indeed. He definitely is poetic. He's calm. He's composed. He thinks about the words he's going to say before he says them. It's all character. It's all part of it. And you can see that Junior's got that about him as well. Quite stern, though. Junior's got a bit of, he's more stern, isn't he? He's had a go at the presenter twice. I think one was at the public workout when he was like, I'm not here to talk about my personal business. When he asked him a question about the Chris obviously announcing, I think it was on the BBC, that he's expecting twins. So he was like, yeah, cut that. Don't want to speak about that. And he's quite cold and cutting. And he's done it again this evening where I think the presenter was asking him about feelings. And he's went, I'm not here to talk about feelings. I'm here to talk about obviously the truth, shed some light on stuff. And he does what he does. Interesting. Would it have made a difference if it was Ade? Because Ade's the zone where you can really say that the presenter that was there today, he's matchroom. So is it a matchroom gripe? Does it even really matter? Probably not. But he was a bit cutting with it. But it is what it is. And as you know, Conor Benn is one that will do the talking. He's going to talk. He's going to argue his point. He shows respect, which Chris rebuts and doesn't want him to do that. He doesn't want Chris to... It's almost like Conor's trying to emotionally see like a human side or a friendly side of Chris. And Chris isn't having it. He just pushes him back and says, just stay over there with that. Not interested. I'm going to win again. And that's kind of Chris's stance for it. He's very, very, very cold, cut off. So interesting. The Welsh was joke and not, yeah. Oh, you're not related. Okay. Well, I just had to ask. I did see it like that. It was like, why the dads? Why have they gone in front of the camera? Let the boys shine. You've had your time. Just allow it, but whatever, it's done now. If you thought that was lame, corny from Hearn, I enjoyed it. I liked it because it was obvious that as soon as Eddie did start to speak, Chris was going to go over him. So the way to do that is with the cue cards. It worked. It got the audience rumbling. But yeah, it's a press conference. What I mean, what more detail can you go into? It's a Riyadh season. It's a ring card. It's the same kind of design that we've seen, where it's a very, very long week for the fighters, because theoretically it actually starts on the Monday. They have like a media day on Monday where they'll be speaking to like the key channels, you know. Then it goes into Tuesday, so they are literally worn out, and potentially that's why I didn't go back down, because it's like, you're going to see them every day. You're potentially not going to get people that you want to speak to anyway. They're going to be absolutely tired of talking to people. They're getting ready. All of the fighters on the card are getting ready for Saturday. So do they need to be repeating themselves thousands of time, answering the same questions? Because inherently we're going to all end up asking the same questions, and that's it. So I think it's a drawn out process. I was speaking to one of the guys that were there, and he said they could have literally done the grand arrivals as part of the public workout and potentially compressed it. So it was like the 3 days before the fight rather than the 4. But look, hey, that's down to them. That's their strategy. That's the way they like to do it. And we might like tuning in every day at 6 o'clock for the whole week, because it makes the event not just about fight night. It's the whole week. But we'll see. Mixed reviews. Chris is saying that Hearn felt awkward seeing Senior with their differences, and I'm going to go into that in a bit, because I did watch the TalkSport conversations. Yeah, to me it was corny, as when Frank Smith went up on the last one. Yeah. Tushin rants. Next time you see Eddie and Connor Abs, please ask why they scammed over 3,000 fans when selling the Benn NFT. What was it? What's the NFT? They promised rewards they didn't deliver, and ghosting fans after they're paid. I'm sure I've seen something like that on Twitter, but what is the NFT? Somebody explained to me in the comments, because clearly that scam didn't get to me, because I only saw something on Twitter and thought, what the hell was that? If you're saying, I do wonder how awkward this must be for Chris's sister, Emily. It's the industry, isn't it? It's the industry. When it comes to like the family that's like not there, not on the cameras, I don't tend to even think about it. I've met Emily. I've met her at the initial press conference before we had the drugs test, the positive drugs test. I met Emily there, and she was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, lovely girl. So this is it. It's show business, isn't it? Let's have a look. No one seems to remember that anymore, which is upsetting. I didn't even, never mind remembering it, I didn't even know that it existed, online currency. Yeah, I'd have to research that before I ask any questions. Non-fungible tokens or something, crypto business. Who knows? Connor Benn is getting hurt. Brickhouse Capital, good evening to you. And good evening to Tushin Rants. I hope I pronounced that right. Connor Benn is getting hurt on Saturday. Eubank Jr. looks much healthier this time around. Him and his dad are together. Bolmack is back. He wins this, and by stoppage. I'm going to ask you guys, before I go into all the TalkSport stuff and a bit of the to-in and fro-in, what do you think about the thing that's been suggested about the weight, the 160? What are your thoughts on that now? And listen, I know how hard it is to get to a certain weight when you get to a certain age. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not hard. But when you think about it as like one of the main key events of the argument, the initial argument with the first fight, what are you guys thinking about that? That's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. I wanted your opinion on. There was lots of questions that I did want to ask Eddie, but the time was compressed, and there was a focus. I did have a focus on Anthony Joshua, because those of you that do watch my channel would know that I did like a 45-minute kind of breakdown on his career and what I thought about him now going off to team music, whether it's for mental training, physical training, boxing training, whatever it is. So my focus was there. So I didn't get to ask questions around this fight. Chris, do you think Chris looked bad last time? I know there's different ways that you can make the weight, guys. Don't get me wrong. We've seen fighters that have clearly made weight the wrong way. But to me, I can't see the difference. I think I'll notice the difference when he's on the scales tomorrow. When he gets on the scales, when both of them get on the scales tomorrow, weigh-in day, the 160 day, then I'll be able to look at it and then compare it to last time and think, okay, now we can see that he looks like a healthier 160. Doesn't look like he's potentially making the weight the way he shouldn't be. And like I said, you've got to be careful what you put out on social media, especially when you're involved in fights, because like you said, you've got the BFC watching, promoters watching, everyone watching, and you've just got to be mindful because that can have an adverse effect on you. So if you don't want it out there, if you don't want people to screen record, save it, share it, etc., just don't put it on social media. So we will see. Let's have a look. Yeah, truth teller Maxwell, spot on. That's exactly what I said. We won't know until the weigh-in. Everyone can look healthy in the face, and then you see them on the scales, the actual weigh-in day, and that's when you'll know what the truth is. Brickhouse goes on to say he will make 160 because he's doing it right, and you can see the difference between how he looked last time and now. I'm waiting for the scales, Brickhouse. I'm literally going to wait for the scales. If he concurs with that, he says he does look healthier this time. Brickhouse goes on to say that he looked horrible last time. Watch it back. I will. I definitely will. Videos to views. Hey, October, and hey, back to you. At the last one, he looked like he was struggling to walk. Okay. We'll have to see. Now, just a little topic that I want to go on to is obviously it's been a media week, and we've had Chris Eubank Sr. do a little bit of a media tour as well as Nigel Benn as well. So the seniors have been out doing their bits. There was allegations of Eubank Sr. being paid to go to the event. Now, whether you believe it or agree with it or whatever, because it went over my head, if I'm honest. I was just like, yeah, whatever. He's paid to go to an event, whatever. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. It's not me that's paying him. I do think when we get involved in boxing, we are so concerned about money, like it's almost coming out of our pockets, or we're financially benefiting from it. As fans, we do not financially benefit from the sport. So whether his dad got paid or whatever, but obviously he rebutted that, came back down and says, listen, that's a lie once again. And this is where we pick up Matchroom once again, the allegations, Eddie Hearn making up stories, Nigel making up stories about him being paid. Do we care if his dad was paid? Is it a bad thing? Is it a bad thing? Would it be a bad thing if he was sat at home, if he was saying, you know what, I'm not going to this, I don't agree with the fight, which he protested all the way through the first fight, remember? He wasn't on board with it. And somebody says, look, we really would like you to be here. Here's a few quid. Is there anything wrong with that? He was probably going to turn up anyway, but who knows? He's saying that he didn't get paid. Other people said that he did. He's saying that he's not a liar. Other people say that he contradicts himself. Either it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect us, but you can see that he's there. He's actively participating in his son's career this time, which as a parent is very nice to see. I do like to see the dads there because it is historic. It is not a fresh fight. It's a 35-year feud. And if you look at it generationally, this is going into the fourth fight because it's the fathers fought twice and now the sons are fighting twice. So there is legacy with it. But like I said, with the face-off, let the sons have their light. It's about the boys. It's about the young ones. I get it. That feel is there. Can you imagine as a fighter, as a champion, as a contender, your son, you know, who was some of them not even born yet or born once you got into boxing, whatever it is, and both of your kids end up fighting and you fought their parent. When they had that face off there, and this is why I'm saying sometimes it can be like a knee-jerk emotional reaction in their heads, or in Chris Senior's head. Did he go back 35 years? Did it just in that split moment, did he just grab that moment and it was him fighting? Because the way that he stepped forward and stood in front of Nigel Benn, it was like it was them. And that's why I said, wow. But you think about it in the moment, is that like a knee-jerk thing? Are you going to get that buzz, that magic, how you felt when you were fighting? And that's the thing about us. It's like, and myself included, I'll say this, sometimes I'm the biggest hypocrite. I say things, but we have to realize we don't see things the way they do. How we react to stuff, they might not react like that. And that is sometimes why we can get really frustrated. And I'm guilty of this as well, because we're judging their reactions based on how we should react, or we've got that armchair view. So we have a calmer view. We're not as hyped as they are. But in that moment, did he go back 35 years? And he was like, yeah, let's have it. I like it on the surface, but sitting back, I was like, but I want to see the boys. I want to see the young ones. But yeah, let's have a look. Go back into the chat because I've rambled on a bit. Let's have a look. Hold on. Senior called Nigel a liar to his face, and Nigel had nothing to say. He was not paid. And this is from Brickhouse Capital. You know, the thing is, when the press if I was there, obviously I've got a full view of the whole table, but when the cameras are going in, you can't see. He didn't say anything, but I heard a lot of huffing and puffing. So unless the cameras were like panned into his face, we don't know what his reaction was. The only way to find out what his reaction was to obviously be on the ground. Eubank Senior and Junior carried this well. Shout out to you, DG. Good to see you here. If he said Hearn was the one who pushed the narrative when asked, did he? But who asked the question? Media loaded. Let's create some havoc. Oh, I heard this rumor. Do you care to comment? You know, stoking the fire, get it as a talking point. But it's worked, hasn't it, Iffy? Because the press conference to start off with was negating that story, which was rebutting it, refuting it. So it's a talking point, isn't it? And some of us benefit by yeah, you do, because you're good at betting. I don't bet. I wouldn't have a clue. I don't think he was paid, but Nigel was. Wow. Where's that come from, Iffy? Karma, good evening to you. Not at all. Karma doesn't believe that he was paid. Nigel looked caught, but I guess it creates more of a storyline. Exactly, Jay Sharp. This is what I'm saying. It creates that narrative, and it gives us something to talk about because we're talking about it now. Brickhouse Capital's obviously coming back to me with the financial side. We care because he was not, and they used it to make him look bad. Nigel has let himself down. He waffled so much crap this week. I don't think it made him look bad. Like I said, I couldn't care less if he was or if he wasn't. So what? It's just of no benefit to me. If you wanted to make a few quid for an appearance, whatever, who cares? I definitely don't. DG saying it's clear to me Eubank Senior did not receive payment. The accusation was only turned up for money. The accusation he only turned up for money is what is wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even look at it like that. Big up Danny Glover and Bass, aka Danny Lethal Weapons, the dynamic duo. Yeah, I couldn't do the live on Tuesday, could I? Because I was traveling back from London. Brickhouse goes on to say Nigel accused Chris Jr. of getting to the hospital first. Of course, he got there first because him and Connor were giving a post-fight press conference as if they'd won, and yet they lost decisively. Brickhouse, I'm getting the slight impression that you're not a fan of the Benns. Don't hold me to it. I'm just saying. So if you're saying I would pay pay-per-view to see the third fight with Senior and Benn added to the card on Saturday, lol. I upgraded, so hopefully no more pay-per-view. We can cover that. If you're saying the Benns look like liars. Ooh, the allegations coming out here. As long as you can see this in the chat, guys, it's not me. I'm just reading out the comments. The opinions are that of the viewers. Forgot the interviewer. I think it was Parsons after the first fight. Cameras on Nigel's face. He said nothing. He looked like a duck out of water. And good evening to you, Philip answer. Well, I'm not vouching for anybody because I'm not there. The only thing I can say, if you took money, so what? If you didn't, so what? The fact is that the fathers are there supporting their sons, and we are getting the second fight. There was a time when I thought, do we really need to see a rematch? It was a good fight. The dad turning up made the night. It was spectacular. And you think, what are we gonna get this time? Did it warrant a rematch? But as per usual, and my fickle self, as we get closer to the date, I do want to see the rematch, because I remember how exciting the first one was. We were here, we were live, we were going at it, and it was definitely a good night of boxing. Interesting. The purses have been put out, or the rumor of purses. We're talking about 10 million, and I think this is USD for Chris Eubank, and 8.5, I believe, for Conor. So they've made some money off it as well. Rematch, they're going to make a hell of a lot of money. Good for them. Chris Eubank Jr., when he put up that picture the other day of his face, I know he said that he went into hospital with severe dehydration. His face was really swollen bad. I think Conor's face blew up straight after the fight. His eyes were puffy, his cheeks were flared out, from the punches, devastating punches. It was a good competitive fight. It was to-ing and fro-ing. I think them lot have been a bit harsh, saying that Conor's performance was poor. I don't think it was, but I don't know if they're downplaying that because they've got some kind of trick up their sleeve for this one. I can't tell you who I think will win. You guys have said Chris looks in so much better condition. So he's made the weight healthy. He's got Bolmac back with him. But I'm not going to fall into this illusion, because yes, Bolmac's been with Chris Jr. before, when he had the match with Liam Beefy Smith. Okay, not disputing that. But I refuse to get into the mentality where I'm going to credit the trainer more than the fighter. I'm not doing it. So Chris is experienced. Chris can box. Chris is a very good boxer. He's a very spiteful boxer as well. So to me, it didn't really matter who was in his corner. Bolmac is perfectly suited to Terence Crawford, just like Virgil Hunter was great for Son of God, Andre Ward. It doesn't mean that you're going to continue that with other fighters. And that's a hill that I'll die on, because I'm not falling into this, perfect trainer. I spoke to a lovely man by the name of, and there's my memory now, Paddy Lynch, and he's a Brummie. Of course, he's a Brummie. I'm a Brummie. And he said to me, it's not the coach that makes the fighter, it's the fighter that makes the coach. So I don't really get that excited when I hear about who's in whose corner. I think about the fighter and the improvements that they make. I look at the improvements and then I think, okay, you definitely see some improvements under that coach. But Chris has changed coaches a few times, where Conor has stuck with Tony Sims through thick and thin. So I'm not going to get gassed up on who's in the corner. I believe that Chris Eubank Jr. is very capable, no matter who's in his corner. It's just down to him, because he can box. He's got skill. and he's so spiteful, a beautiful, spiteful fighter. That's how I remember him all those years ago when Next Gen was definitely a valid name for him. I can't believe he's still pulling that tag, but it works. It works. Next Gen in your 30s, Next Gen. So there's hope for me yet. Let me head back into the chat. Brickhouse says, you're right, October. Not a Ben fan at all. They call themselves Christians, but their character is the opposite. Nigel is a disappointment. Please elaborate. I don't think that religion makes anybody any better than anybody else. But whatever. Ice Chips, good evening. I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you. As a big man, if a man calls you a liar, you have to respond. Okay. If you're saying, I hope Eubank Jr. wins, and it's actually in pounds, not dollars. Okay, even better. Even better. And Brickhouse concurring with what Ice Chips has said. A Eubank will never lose to a Ben. If Chris makes the weight properly, it's an easy win. I don't think he's going to have a problem making weight, DG. I think he's going to sail through it. I think he's going to be comfortable at the weight. It's going to be an interesting fight. I really can't call a winner. Brickhouse goes on to say Conor lost, even if he looked like Naomi Campbell after the fight. That's his business. He lost to a dehydrated Eubank Jr. He's got to make weight properly. Chris Eubank Jr. is too stubborn. He eventually does his own thing. Yeah, but the thing is, he can box. He's the type of fighter. He's a bit like Tyson Fury. He can just go in there and box on his own. I'm not saying that he doesn't need a trainer. Like there is a need for a guide in the corner, but he's more than capable. So I'm not going to put the credit and the onus onto anybody because I know what Chris is capable of. I've watched him for years. Like I said, when Next Gen, he definitely was Next Gen, the young, fresh-faced, the Chris that would, often smile. But you can't take away the pain and the trauma that you see in Chris's eyes when he speaks. Obviously, rest in peace to his brother who passed away. It's your brother. It's your family. You never get over losing a sibling, even worse when they're so young. So I think that, and quite rightly so, would take a lot out of him. So you see, like there's more coldness in him now, and even the fact that he's gone on and he's going to have his own children. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. And even when he sat at the first press conference and he said pain, I know what pain is. And that's when he sort of like really opened his mouth. And that bit, I was there and I was like, oh my gosh. It was sad to hear him say that. Painful. So he's got there's a lot there. And that's why, he doesn't want to speak about his emotions. He does come across. And you do find that sometimes when people come across as quite cold, it's because they're not. It's because there's other underlying things bubbling under the surface. The trainer's value is in the game plan. This is from DG. If Eubank can follow the path, it's an easier night. The Eubank jab wins if he uses it. You know what I think wins if Chris Eubank wins? The pressure of the multitude of shots that he can throw to the body of Ben as a finisher. Because that's how I remember the spiteful Chris Eubank Jr. So I think it'll be, if he's going to win, it's going to be the multitude of power shots that he throws into Conor. Very, very, like I said, very, very spiteful puncher. Jonathan Banks deserved better than that. Yeah, I don't think he did a bad job with him. Jonathan Banks has, trained the likes of Cecilia Brækhus. Was he in the corner with Jarrell Miller? I know he had Dillian White. To be fair, that was when he lost to Anthony Joshua. But Jonathan Banks, good trainer as well. But you believe that the trainer makes the difference? When you're at a certain level, I think there's always an addition, but I'm not sold on a difference. Sorry, not sold. Not sold. I believe that it's certain fighters that will bring the best out of the coach. That's what I believe. But that's just my opinion, just like you've got yours. Nigel brags about his Christianity. That's why I said it. He can brag about it all it likes. A lot of fighters do that. They will thank first and foremost their Lord, Savior, Jesus Christ. It doesn't make you a good person. My opinion, once again. Charlie Rogers, good evening to you. Team Eubank, I'm hating on Cheesy Hearn. Harry says, am I going to the fight? No, I'm doing a watch along. The undercard fight I'm looking forward to is Jack Catterall and Echo Esserman, because I believe that Echo is going to drag Jack Catterall into a fight. And I'm interested, another fighter that's changed trainers. He's gone to, is it Boots dad, Boots Senior, Jaron Ennis. He's with Jaron Ennis's team, isn't he? If I'm incorrect, put it in the chat. But he's left the UK, gone over to America, and has got a new trainer. Echo Esserman is extremely dangerous. I've seen him on the floor. I've seen him get up and go on to win. He's been a fighter, and I've got like a 2-minute interview that I need to post with him, actually. He was almost somebody that was almost like put into fights to see if he'll lose, but he just kept on coming back stronger and stronger. That's a dangerous fight, because the engine, everyone says, every time Jack Catterall fights, blah, blah, blah. I think the engine is going to take it somewhere else. But we'll see. We will see. So that's definitely a fight that I'm looking forward to. It's the fight that I've spoke about from when the card was announced. So, OK Design says Eubank in 9. So we're saying stoppage then. Interesting. And good evening to you, OK Designs. DG says Nigel Benn was a great fighter, but a very flawed character. He's matured with age, but his core is not as righteous as they make out. I've got a little bit of a news flash, guys. Religion doesn't make you righteous. Doesn't. I still don't understand why is the A side, Team Eubank, allowed the rehydration clause at all. I don't know. That is something for the contracts. I think the promotional teams, management, lawyers, they've obviously, when you say allowed it, if he's agreed it, hasn't he? Don't know. I thought there would have been room for negotiation to make sure that they didn't do that again, but obviously not. VJ Slim, good evening to you. I like it. Nigel looked stupid. 10-8 round 2 senior. Is that when you was on about the face-off? If you're saying, I think Bolmack's energy is unmatched, it's like the opposite of Virgil Hunter's. Yeah, they're definitely 100% contrast in trainers. 100%. They're all different and they work well with who they work with. But like I said, I'm not going to buy into it that it's fantastic because of the trainer that you've got in the corner. The fighter's the one that has to go out there for 3 minutes, whether it's a plan or not, and he's got to think for himself. I've spoken to countless fighters and they said, yeah, you can study this and study that and work to a plan, and then the fighter will come out and do something completely different. You've got to be able to think on your feet yourself as a fighter. You've got to be able to do that. And that's where we see sometimes with fighters getting dragged into a fight they potentially don't want to get dragged into. We've seen it several times. I'm preaching to the converted. I think Eubank, Charlie Rogers is saying, I think Eubank, TK. Okay, so a couple of you. Did somebody say round 9 early or round 7? Echo wins it. So Buatsi will bring the best out of Hunter. If Buatsi was allowed to be Buatsi. Yeah. You know my thoughts on the Buatsi matchup with Hunter. I don't need to keep repeating myself. I've said it to everyone, and I've been quite open and honest that just because it works with a certain fighter doesn't mean it's going to work with you. But actually, in my personal opinion, he described a fighter that I already knew was there that just needed a little bit of tidying up with the defense. And that was when he was first started out and he was with Rob McCracken. Same as Anthony Joshua was with Rob McCracken. Same as Carl Froch was with Rob McCracken. Same as Lauren Price is with Rob McCracken. That worked. True regarding the multitude of shots, but the jab sets it up. Of course the jab sets it up, but I think he's going to do it via a finisher. Shame Chris didn't listen years ago when he was absolute savage. Yeah. I was very upset when he kind of stepped out and disappeared for a bit, because you're right, he was an absolute savage. A pleasure to watch. A spiteful fighter that had that attitude and that charisma, the way that he'd walk in the ring, nostalgic to his father. It was all there, and it just, yeah, it was just frustrating. But life's. The fact is that he's come back. They're all prize fighters. They all fight for money. So it is what it is. Are the belts that important anymore? Or are we looking at who can provide us with the most entertaining fights? Are we moving away from belts? Are we moving away from championships? And is it just about exciting fights? Is it even about the best fighting the best anymore? I don't know. Boxing's definitely evolving. Echo for the win, unless Jack can get away from that boring style. Hopefully Bowsy has unlocked a bit of life in him. And this is what we're going to see, aren't we? This is what we're going to see. Has Willie's style change up? Can you teach an old dog new tricks? Eddie Hearn has sat there and said that about Chris Eubank Jr. Going over to Bolmac, but he's not mentioned that when it comes to Jack Catterall. Can you teach Jack Catterall new tricks, as he is also an old dog, if you look at it like that? Again, APC Bishop, you don't know jack about boxing, blood. Well, I'll tell you what, if you know more than me, set up your own channel and you can talk about it and let people listen to you. So Eubank's best wins are against fighters who come towards him. Spike O'Sullivan had a same style as Benn, but Eubank stopped him. And that was a really good fight. I remember that. I remember the face-off for that. Absolutely brilliant. And then look what he did to him. It was marvelous. I love that fight. I remember it so well. Did he retire him after that? I'm sure Spike retired after that. Ice Chip says rehydration is a myth and motivated by money. Bolmac's energy can motivate anyone. Does Chris need motivating? If you're all right, then if you're in his corner, you're his coach, what does he need? What would you add to Chris's corner? You're in there, you're the coach. You're saying Bolmac provides that motivation. What would you tell him to do? How would you get him to win the fight? VJ as a religion is to control. God is about unity, not divide. But I'll get back to boxing. And it is allegedly about unity. James, good evening to you. He had to be paid to turn up for his son. Was he going to be there if not for the money? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? But either way, couldn't care less. Chris wants the money. The clause comes second, third, maybe even last. Chris has twins on the way. Ditch the rehydration clause and enter as healthy as possible. And that's one thing that I think all of us have kind of skipped over. But DJ, you brought it up there. Boxing's a very, very dangerous sport. And you have to think about things like rehydration, because obviously the less fluid you've got around your brain, the more damage from the punches that you can get, which can end quite badly. We've seen that. We've seen that with fighters. And we know that both of them were going at it hard. But he signed it. He knows what he's getting into. He's agreed to the contract. It's just one of them, isn't it? That Spike O'Sullivan fight was fire. I'm sensing that we'll see that again in parts of this fight on Saturday. Eubank Jr. is coming to do damage. You can definitely see that in him just by the way that he's quite calm, definitely colder this time and more calculated. I think when I spoke to Dan Aziz the other day, he was saying that he doesn't want to leave fights up to the judges because at the end of the day, it's down to perception and it's down to how they see it. He mentioned the late, great Marvin Hagler said he leaves it up to the fists, K and O. And I think potentially that is what Chris is going to be aiming for. Bomac sat there and he said, look, we're not aiming for a stoppage, but if we do and we get it, a win's a win. Star Fox, I'm sure them two have parted ways now. Lawrence Okoli comments to Riatport. Yeah. Well, what do you guys think of that fight? What do you guys think of Tommy Welsh? Have you seen him fight? What do you think that he can bring to the table? I did say to Rich that I thought he would have been fighting a tougher opponent. However, upsets can happen. And if he loses to Tommy, it's curtains for him. Which Frank Warren fighter? 100% religion doesn't make you righteous, but plenty of once bad mind people turn to, yeah, and they do, and they do, but it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't make them righteous. Spike is still going, but he might as well he is still going. I thought that Chris retired him from that fight. And he didn't look that good against the Polish fighter. Okay. So Echo is all wrong for Catterall. Echo would drag him and then drown him in the later rounds. I agree with that, Ice Chips. That's the way that this fight can go. If you're looking at Jack Catterall's last fights, 100%, because that's what the engine does. They don't call him Echo EE, the engine, for nothing. So yeah, I think that's potentially a dangerous fight. However, if you're going on the coach's logic, and we'll soon find out on Saturday, we will see what will happen with it. Okay, he's a relation of yours, is he? People say that, but I don't know if he is. Eubank Jr. retired Spike and damaged Grove so much his hand was dangling off his shoulders. A locked-in Eubank Jr. delivers wickedness. This fight will be vicious. Yeah, definitely. Riatpor should win as long as Madonna hasn't taken on his energy with her witchcraft. Listen, she's got a young Jamaican thing now. He's gone to the curb. She ain't interested in him again. I saw the interview you did with Richard. You call him Rich. Always as a fighter, I didn't like his vibe, so I'm not sure how it goes. You didn't like his vibe. Interesting. Tommy should be a catwalk for Richard. Well, we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's heavyweights. I do believe that there will be an upset on the card. I don't think it's going to be, I don't know, A-side fighters winning all the way through it. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But I'm not complaining about it. I don't know if it's part of this new pay-per-view thing, which is what, 25 quid a month that DAZN have announced that they're doing away with it. And it says, what did they say? Minimum 12 fights a year that you get on the pay-per-view, or is it maximum 12 fights that you're going to get that should be pay-per-view included in your subscription? 25 quid. With the way that we've been paying pay-per-view every other week, it seems like, especially the later part of this year, the subscription is what it is. I pay for the subscription. I've upgraded as well. So, and we've got the Benavidez fight. Not that I'll be staying up to watch it. Oh, actually, is it in Saudi? Oh, if it is, we'll be doing a watch along for that as well. But we'll see how that goes. Anthony Joshua, then the rumor is potentially he is fighting Jake Paul. Interesting, that, isn't it? I don't know how I feel about that fight, but we'll see what happens with that. Hold on, got some things here. Charlie Rogers is saying, I don't rate Tommy Welsh. A few people have said, oh yeah, he's a really good solid fighter, and oh, this could be potentially dangerous for Rich. And then I'm looking through the fights and I'm thinking, okay, but don't know, we'll see. CDG says Richard Riakporhe's taking a risk with this fight. It's a run out only. Well, it should be a run out. On paper, it should be. Look, it's heavyweights, isn't it? So anything's possible. You can't really write anyone off. On paper, they've got similar records. Obviously, they've been built differently. One of them's had the TV broadcast, and one of them's been working away silently in the background. So this is a massive opportunity for Tommy. It does come from boxing blood. Yes, I thought Richard might have fought somebody that was further along in their career. And like I said, I used Jordan Thompson as an example. After 2 years going up to heavyweight, look at his debut. Look at who he fought. One of the Cubans, one of the Perot brothers, I do beg your pardon. That was a mad risk for his first fight at heavyweight. So when I'm looking at that, and then I see Richard going into fight number 2, yeah, as a heavyweight, I'm expecting a little bit more of a risk. And that's why I said that. Not to disrespect Tommy, because Tommy's done his own thing, albeit behind closed doors, as it were. The fights, I've not really seen them. But I thought Richard would have took more of a risk. But like I said, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to Tommy. So, but we'll see. Let's have a look. Oh, I've missed some things. If he's saying, I hope Richard wins. James is saying Benn should go for the body early. So we're mixing up the fights here. Obviously, like I said, Charlie said he doesn't rate him. DG said he's taking a risk. Trust me, those direct debits aren't funny. What for the DAZN prices? Jake Paul will do a Jermaine Franklin on AJ. We'll see, won't we? This is actually a good fight for Richard. I think his opponent is undefeated. Yeah, Richard is tough Nigerian from my ends in South London. As long as he's still eating jollof rice and cow foot, he will win. But if he's eating salad with banana, he'll get clapped up. Listen, I don't even know if he's still in the UK. Obviously, he trains in Scotland, so I don't know what he's definitely having for his dinner. He's definitely put on size, though. Like I said, I saw him the other day, had a chat with him, asked him why he took this opponent, etc., because the fight that we all wanted to see him have was the one with Lawrence Okoli, the fight that should have been made when they had a little scuffle in the cinema, but that didn't happen. So, but we are here. They're going to potentially meet anyway. He's looking at mixing it up with domestics. I've thrown the name out of Jordan Thompson for them two to potentially fight as well. Eddie's looking at putting Jordan into the British mix. We've got obviously Jamie Takivi and Fraser Clark going for the British title. Eddie's going to try and creep in there, said that he potentially wants the winner for Jordan, or potentially throw him into 8-rounder and then put him in for the British. So that there's a lot of stuff that's going on domestically for the heavyweights that I guess they can all mix it up with. But we'll see. We will see what happens. Ice Chips is saying Riakporhe needs a spectacular KO, but to get the best fights, he needs to show some vulnerability to get the better fights. And I hear that. Strategy, Ice Chips, I hear it. And if you have a look at Tommy comes forward, his front foot, he unloads his shots. There's not that much composure with him. Richard's more composed, but you don't need to really have that much composure. It's just what the damage that you can do in the fights. But a lot of the fights that Tommy has had, the opponents have turned up, mainly on the back foot, can't deal with his pressure because he does throw a lot of shots. You heard them on comms that were saying he practically looks like a cruiserweight. He's a smaller heavyweight, whereas Richard looks slightly bigger. But we know that size doesn't really matter in this sport. It's going to be down to skill. And the one thing I will say, and I know I've been going off about trainers today, But the one thing I will say is I think Billy Nelson can come up with a good game plan. And you know why? Look at his last fight, Crocker Donovan. Look at that. That was a really good fight. Yes, we've seen Bacoli have good days and bad days. Was Bacoli with him when he fought Tony Yoka? I'm not sure if he was. So I don't know how much credit I can give him. But I do believe, and I did see Billy Nelson waved at him in passing. I do believe that Billy Nelson will create a game plan, and he would have studied him. So there will be a game plan in place, because we saw what happened with Crocker Donovan. And Emil, fantastic question, because I've put the feelers out, because he's potentially going to be fighting Masternak, right? So shout out to you, Emil Larson. Very good question. There's a rumor that he's fighting Masternak. Masternak, good fighter, solid fighter. We saw that he was getting the better of Chris Billam-Smith, but obviously Billam-Smith just got him in the ribs. His rib was broken. He probably couldn't even breathe properly. But he lost in a very good fight to Chris Billam-Smith. So he's now potentially, that's the rumor, going to be fighting Vidal Riley. But the question is, who is Vidal Riley signed to? Because he's openly left Boxer. But when you look on Boxer's YouTube page, they've put up a lot of the fights, the previous fights, that obviously with the fighters that have left. The only one that's not on there is Boatsy, I think. But Vidal Riley's fights up there, Ben Whittaker's fights up there. But obviously that was like in the millions of views. So I guess they wouldn't take that down. But nobody knows who Vidal Riley's gone with. And I've literally gone to his management team and they've literally said, not saying anything, leave it as that. So I've been told to go away and stop asking questions. But to announce a potential fight and then we don't know who's going to be hosting it is a bit of a weird one. So very good question. I've asked it. Nothing's come back yet. Maybe we'll get something in the next couple of days. I would presume it's either going to be Queensbury or Matchroom, but who knows? It could be Wasserman. Who knows? It could be MVP. Who knows? Ice Chips has said Richard has a reputation of being gun shy and can be boring. Somebody else said this, Ice Chips. If he doesn't let his hands go, that's going to be a problem. But like I said, are we going to put that into the hands of the trainer and see if he can come off with anything good there? Nelson and Bacoli, Romeo and Juliet, Riyad Portia. You think so, Adam Booth? Why? Oh, and Josh Kelly's gone back to Matchroom. That was interesting. But sort of having Wasserman as, I don't know, like advisors, or they're still slightly involved in his career. That was a bit of a weird one as well. Boxing is just upside down and on top of its head at the moment. Let me have a quick look and see what is on X while we're here before I disappear off into the night. Let me have a look and see what's going on X. Not the horror pages that I follow. Just trying to see if there's anything come up. Nah, it's just people going on about Anthony Joshua. But we will see what happens with him, because according to Eddie, it's not yet a done deal. I've heard that potentially it more or less is, but we'll see what happens with that. So on that note, I am going to disappear off into the night. Hold on. Richard Riakpor's had nothing left at cruiserweight. His output as a heavyweight was good. Now he has energy. And we'll see if he follows through. We'll see if it really works on the weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I would have liked a better opponent, but saying that, Tommy could come and upset the apple cart, and it's as simple as that. It's heavyweights. When he gets this fight through, I would like to see him fight someone like potentially Jordan after Jordan's had another fight, and start to mix it up with the heavyweights that we have got here. Because is he going to go on to world honors? What's going to happen with Usyk? Is he going to defend again? Who's he going to defend against? We've yet to see Daniel Dubois come back. Like I said, Anthony Joshua's in the mix for potentially Jake Paul. When is he going to have like a proper heavyweight fight and not, obviously, this is kind of like an exhibition fight, isn't it? For money. It's a money fight, whatever. I suppose when you're rich, a few more quid doesn't do you any harm. So yeah, I can't see anything on X. So on that note, I think I'm going to leave. We've been going for an hour, ladies and gentlemen. So listen, if you've tuned in, I appreciate every single one of you, each and every one of you, for taking your time out this evening, as I believe the football is on. I will be back Saturday night, probably starting from the Richard Riakporhe fight. I think that probably about 4 fights. So I'll start from there, and then obviously we'll get to the headline. So I appreciate all of you. I'm Abs of October Red. Thank you very much for tuning in. As you can see, we've got the sponsors in the corner there. Shout out to SA UK, Maximum Security, Minimum Fuss, and to all of you that got involved in the chat as well. Very much appreciated. Even the dickheads that just have to say something because it's easy to talk shit when you're online. Anyway, on that note, adios, take it easy, and see you all soon.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.
October Red is sponsored by SA Security. Maximum security, minimum fuss.